And I'm going to ask that if you have any questions for any of our presenters today, please just put them in the chat and we'll do our best to get to them. For those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Don Ferguson, and I'm pleased to be recently rejoining the Chamber world as the Sault Chamber's Director of Operations and Policy. I was with the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber for almost 20 years, and I've recently returned after about a 2.5-year sabbatical, we'll call it. If we haven't met face-to-face, I hope we can at some point. If you see me at an event or out and about, please don't hesitate to introduce yourself. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that while we are meeting virtually today, the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce operates on the traditional, territorial, and ancestral lands of the Ojibwe people from Garden River and Batchewana First Nations. To the Anishinaabe people, this sacred and spiritual place has been known since time immemorial as Bawating. This particular location is very near the actual site where the Robinson-Huron Treaty was negotiated and entered into in 1850. And it is incumbent on all of us to learn more about the treaty and especially our roles in it. Only then can we truly honor the original people on this part of Turtle Island as we recognize their homelands in the spirit of partnership and reconciliation. I want to thank everyone for joining us today and a warm welcome to this important conversation for Canadian small businesses. Over the next 30 to 60 minutes, we're going to unpack some very timely developments. The new federal government supports for Canadian businesses in response to the U.S. tariffs and what they really mean for you, whether you're a small, medium, or larger enterprise. As you're no doubt aware, the United States' recent imposition of steep tariffs on Canadian imports has created real ripple effects across the economy, touching businesses of all sizes from auto parts manufacturers to food processors. These tariffs have made doing business more expensive, disrupted supply chains, and put pressure on Canadian exporters who rely on integrated cross-border markets. In response, the Government of Canada has launched a suite of support measures, things like tariff remission frameworks, temporary relief for U.S.-made inputs into manufacturing, and liquidity support. They're also stepping up to access financing through programs at the Business Development Bank of Canada and expanding Trade Commissioner resources to help you navigate CUSMA compliance, customs procedures, and more. Importantly, there's a Regional Tariff Response Initiative now being scaled up to help small and medium-sized enterprises invest, diversify markets, and build resilience in the face of this disruption. Our goal in this webinar is to introduce you to some of the available tariff responses that are currently coming available to you. We'll walk through FedNor's new Regional Tariff Response Initiative, including program eligibility activities, and project cost details, as well as BDC's $500 million Pivot to Grow program and its Softwood lumber sector program, both aimed at helping Canadian businesses strengthen their operations and stay competitive. So let's get started. I would like to introduce you to our presenters today. Nevin Bukonjic. Nevin has been an initiatives officer with FedNor for the past 5 years. He works with nonprofit companies, nonprofit organizations, municipalities, and First Nations to promote and deliver federal programs to boost economic development and innovation in Sault Ste. Marie and Northern Ontario. Prior to FedNor, Nevin was the manager of trade and investment with the City of Sault Ste. Marie, the lead at Investment Sault Ste. Marie, and founder of Startup Sault Ste. Marie. Nevin has worked in economic development at the provincial, municipal, and federal levels for more than 20 years. And Nadia Amaral. Nadia is a senior account manager with the Business Development Bank of Canada, where she has built a 20-year career supporting the growth and success of entrepreneurs. She has experience in different roles within the organization and currently serves clients across Northern Ontario from Elliott Lake to Hornepayne. Nadia has also been deeply involved in community development through initiatives with the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce, Startup Sault Ste. Marie, Starter Company, and partnerships with the City of Sault Ste. Marie, Millworks in various capacities. She is dedicated to strengthening local economies and helping businesses thrive. So thank you everybody for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over now to Nadia and Nevin.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Am I on mute still? No. Awesome. So I think I'm going to go ahead. Do I just start sharing my presentation, Dawn?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, give me one
Floor is
second.
yours.
Give me 1 second to make sure I know how to do this properly. Perfect. So good morning. Today I'll provide some information on our pivot to grow loan specific to tariffs. And I do have my colleague in our advisory department, Tara Perry, who will give an overview on the trade resilience program that is also part of tariff-related products with the BDC. So the pivot to grow loan. Pivot to grow loan is a working capital loan, loan and or equipment loan. The objective of these loans is to provide liquidity to Canadian businesses operating in sectors affected by the actual or potential new tariffs, as well as by the economic slowdown. The program supports businesses likely to be negatively impacted by recent or future U.S. tariffs, while considering the uncertainty that these tariffs create for Canadian products. Eligibility. So business must show annual revenues greater than $2 million in the last fiscal year, and there's various criteria defined for the two main groups. So Group 1 are direct U.S. exporters, showing at least 15% of revenues derived from exports, and Group 2, negatively impacted businesses or a business currently having adverse impacts. Recently imposed tariffs or potential U.S. tariffs, uncertainty from tariffs, or general economic slowdown. Qualifying criteria could be disruption of raw materials, revenue reduction of 10%, cost increases of 10%, and the business also must have been viable prior to the implementation of tariffs. You'll see on this slide some of the loan features. So we are offering up to $5 million loan with a minimum threshold of $350,000. Businesses can pay interest only for up to 24 months. Total amortization on these programs is 8 years, with the exception of our steel industry clients that do get 10 years total amortization on their products. These loans are open to prepay at any time without penalty. There are preferred interest rates and no study or application fees. Funds are to be used to support businesses with market expansion and diversification, as well as the purchase of equipment to improve productivity, or if it enhances competitiveness, or to support repositioning of operations towards another market. Funds are not to be used to reduce existing debts, pay dividends, or make shareholder changes. That is just a quick overview on the Pivot to Grow loan. The other product that BDC has is the Softwood Lumber Guarantee Program, which is an additional program to support Canadian softwood lumber businesses. These businesses are softwood lumber mills whose principal business is subject to U.S. softwood lumber duties, remanufacturing mills whose principal business is the exportation of softwood lumber products to the U.S. and is subject to the U.S. softwood lumber duties. These companies must show annual revenues of at least $1 million. For this program, the difference here is the first point of contact would be the business's charter bank, or if the business does not have any financing agreement with an institution, then on an exception basis, you can apply direct to BDC. And for those cases, the process does go through a dedicated team within our corporate finance. For the tariff pivot to grow loan, the process goes through me here locally. More details are available at bdc.ca, or I can be reached directly for any questions. And I will hand it over to my colleague Tara to speak on the advisory services trade plan.
Thanks, Nadia, and thanks again to the Chamber for hosting this. For those of you who aren't familiar with BDC Advisory, I think most people think of BDC as primarily a lending institution, which obviously we do, and Nadia is a great contact locally for some of our loans that are out there. But part of our commitment as a Crown Corporation is to help Canadian businesses, and especially during times like this when companies have been affected by the current trade situation with our neighbors to the south. We've come up with a trade resilience plan. So essentially, it's our management consulting firm that's within the bank that typically works with clients as a fee for service. The government has come up with some funds to help subsidize a portion of the work. And through this plan, it's basically broken into 3 parts. And in the first part of the plan, over the course of about 4 to 6 weeks for the entirety of the plan, the first portion is looking at your business in terms of resiliency. So across all the different functional areas, your finance, your operations, your marketing, that type of thing, to better understand how the current trade situation is affecting your business, and then coming up with some ideas on what you can do to help mitigate some of those risks. It becomes a bit of a choose your own adventure after the first phase, where you have three options, and it's written down here in the slide. We can either look at your financial function, so understanding like how you're pricing your goods and services, looking at your supply chain, all that kind of stuff. We can look at your operations, so really understanding if we don't have the opportunity to perhaps increase pricing, is there an opportunity to reduce how we're getting product out the door? And then the third area is market diversification. And that can be either geographic or industrial industries. So, for instance, if you're highly reliant on the U.S., but you want to look at entering the European market, we can help with that. And as we go through and build out this plan with you, we're going to develop a bit of a roadmap with recommendations. So you've got the whole, what's going to happen over the next 12 to 14 weeks. Who's going to be responsible for it? Are we going to measure the KPIs on the project, all that kind of stuff. So it's meant primarily for clients, or you don't actually have to be a BDC client, but it's meant for businesses that are 2 million in revenue or over. But it's a bit of a gray area because we use size as a bit of a proxy for complexity of your business. But for clients that are also under 2 million, we also have what we're calling Ask the Expert, which is up to 4 hours of free advice with our consultants as well. So if you have questions around like your CUSMA or your export or anything like that, that just requires a kind of a quick and dirty answer, we can get that to you as well. So if you're interested in the program at all, please reach out to either myself or Nadia, and we'd be happy to walk through it, figure out the eligibility, and work with you on next steps. Nadia, I'll pass it over to you.
Perfect. So just finally, Tara and I both mentioned the eligibility being clients over 2 million for businesses that are, or clients or companies over 2 million in revenues. Businesses that are 2 million or less, please reach out. We do have other financing and advisory solutions to support them as well, just not under this product. And that's it. I'll stop sharing.
Dawn, are there any questions in the chat?
I think we're going to do questions at the end. I'll hand it over to Nevin.
Sure, thanks, Nadia. I'll just pull up my presentation here. And share my screen. Can everyone see that okay? Perfect. Okay. Well, as Dawn mentioned, my name is Nevin Bakonjic. I'm with FedNor. I've been with the organization for about 5 years. We regularly run a number of programs year-round, so there's no specific dates to apply. We regularly help government, First Nations, nonprofits, and for-profit companies through our regular programming. And our main focus is economic development and innovation. So our goal is to spur job creation and other economic development benefits to the community, as well as help companies to grow and become more efficient through innovation and technology. So today I'm particularly speaking about the Regional Tariff Response Initiative and what's involved with that new programming, which will help companies to deal with the current tariff impacts. So this is a temporary initiative to help businesses in Northern Ontario to navigate the economic impacts of global tariff shocks. So as you know, many businesses are feeling the effects of tariffs and the ongoing trade uncertainty, and that's why the Government of Canada has created the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, which I'll refer to as RTRI throughout this session. The initiative is designed to help small or medium-sized businesses adapt and thrive during this time. It can support projects to make your business more competitive, whether that means improving efficiencies, entering new markets, strengthening supply chains, or boosting domestic trade. The initiative will be in effect for 3 years, so beginning March 21st, 2025, and ending March 31st, 2028. And it offers both non-repayable and repayable contributions, depending on the project. The initiative aims to help you respond to trade disruptions, adapt to changing conditions, and continue to grow despite the current challenges. And is part of a broader set of tariff support measures from the Government of Canada, including the Large Enterprise Tariff Loan and the BDC's Pivot to Grow initiative you just heard about. So together, these measures strengthen Canada's industrial base and help protect domestic jobs. If you're an SME, you may be eligible for funding under this program. We do have priority sectors. They include steel, automotive, critical minerals, mining, forestry, clean technology, bioeconomy, and agriculture. And retail and tourism sectors are not eligible under this particular program. The key here for your business is to show that tariffs or trade disruptions have affected your business, perhaps through increased costs, reduced sales, or other challenges caused by tariffs. For example, you must demonstrate impact of the ongoing trade war with countries like the US and China. So you must have at least 25% sales in one of these markets, or demonstrate other direct negatively affected challenges from the current tariffs. In addition to that, you'll be required to demonstrate that you have operations in Northern Ontario, you employ 5 or more full-time employees, and your operations have been viable for at least 3 consecutive years. So we'd be looking at the last 3 years of financial statements as well as the BDC does. Projects will be assessed against other factors, including the company's role within the sector and its impacts on the region, managerial, technical, and operational capacity to achieve the project objectives, the expected project results, and your plan to mitigate the negative effects of tariffs, to name a few things. So the objective here is to demonstrate how you're being impacted and what this project can do to help alleviate those impacts. Funding will be based on the minimum amount required to carry out the project. Non-repayable contributions to a maximum of $1 million will be available. You're eligible for reimbursement up to 50% towards eligible costs. The program is focused on non-repayable contributions. However, we do have a repayable contribution portion for over $1 million. So for loans over $1 million and up to $5 million, support is in the form of a repayable loan at 0% interest. And projects under the repayable portion are eligible for reimbursement up to 75% of eligible costs. The terms of repayment will be determined during the development of the contribution agreement. And stacking is available to 90% and up to 100% for Indigenous businesses. So if there's other eligible government programs that could help with the same project, you could technically go up to 90% funding. I encourage you to review the FedNor website for more details and speak to your program officer before submitting your application. I've already posted the link to our program in the chat, so you can go directly there to find out more information and how to apply to the program. So now that we've covered who may be eligible for RTRI, let's look at the types of activities the initiative may support and how they can help your business. You can invest in technology like automation or digitization to make your operations more efficient. You may explore new markets through export development, market diagnostics, or customer diversification. The initiative can also help strengthen partnerships meet standards or certifications, and improve supply chain reliability across Canada. And some projects may even involve bringing back production to the region, advancing research and development, or attracting skilled personnel. To make this more concrete, here are a few examples. So a biotech firm could expand their business into new markets to lessen their reliance on the US market, for example. A steel processor might automate to increase productivity and become more cost efficient. Or a clean technology company may engage with advisors and consultants to improve their production process to lower overall costs. So RTRI can support a wide variety of projects across the different sectors, and maybe even yours. Under the program, costs incurred may be eligible as far back as March 21st, 2025. To confirm which costs may be eligible for your project, you'll need to speak directly with project officers, such as myself. To be clear, eligible costs under this program would include incremental labor and material costs related to the project, capital costs such as purchase of machinery, equipment, and infrastructure, consultancy, professional and technical service fees, advisory services, training, conference fees, etc., and costs to maintain or expand markets. Ineligible costs would include regular maintenance or ongoing operational costs, regularly scheduled capital expenditure or asset replacement, refinancing of an existing debt, the cost of amortization and goodwill, acquisition of land and buildings, entertainment or lobbying expenses, just basic research, or costs incurred before the eligibility date. So how do I apply and what are the next steps? So again, the first step in applying to RTRI or any of our programs is to reach out to the FedNor regional office in your area. So if you're in Sault Ste. Marie, likely I would be the officer you would reach out to, but we have 6 offices across the north, and you're free to go to our website and find out who the different officers are and reach out to them directly. And if you're already a FedNor client, you can obviously just reach out to your existing program officer. So the program will be administered using a 2-phase application process, and this is pretty standard for FedNor programs. So the first phase, or initial application, requires some general information about your company, the project, and also responding to some attestation-based questions related to the program and the impacts of tariffs on your business. So this is a bit different from our regular programming. We're asking upfront, how are you being impacted? So you're going to tell us what sector you're operating in and how you're being impacted by the tariffs, so we can evaluate whether you would qualify for the program upfront. Should you be invited to submit a detailed application, which would be phase 2, you'll be required to provide much more detail regarding the tariff impacts that your company has endured and a forward-looking strategy that will include details regarding how the project will assist you to establish new markets, boost productivity, or whatever your intended goal is to overcome sort of the tariff impacts. If you decide to proceed with an application, you can submit it directly through our client portal page, which is accessible at the bottom of the program page on our website. It's highly recommended that you refer to the applicant guide as well to complete your application, and ensure to include all the required supporting documents, including evidence noted on the previous slides. Missing information may delay the evaluation process. And of course, if you have any questions before or along the way, please feel free to reach out. Now I'd like to open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions about the program or next steps, I will open it up to that. But first I'll jump out of here, stop sharing my screen.
So we'll encourage people, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat box. I'm going to start off with a quick question for Nadia. Nadia, if somebody is coming to BDC and is interested in starting to move forward with one of the funding streams that you noted today, what can they do right now? Are there things that they should be looking to pull together immediately before coming to you? Are there things that they should be, pulling together in terms of financials or other documentation that you would be looking for to help, move the process ahead, just so that they can get a bit of a head start on it?
Sure. Honestly, Don, I think the number one thing that I would ask anyone reaching out would be current financials for the last 2 years and some interim for this year on how the business is trending, just in order to have a conversation and discuss at that point next steps. There's a plan required as well through the process, but we give you like a template to that plan. So anything after our initial discussion, if we choose to move forward, then it would be, I think, a collaborative effort in obtaining what we need at that point versus someone coming to me with everything, because it is intense somewhat to the application process in terms of what we need. But from the get-go, just as long as the business has their financials current, it's worth a conversation and we can go from there.
Thanks. And one other quick question for you. I want to make sure I heard properly when you were mentioning when you were going through the Pivot to Grow program. You mentioned that there is some additional considerations for businesses that are in steel. Was that correct, or a prolonged timeline for payback? Did I hear that correctly?
Correct. Steel industry clients do have 10 years on an amortization. So for working capital loans, the product is 8 years, including an initial 2-year postponement of interest only. But for steel industry clients, we're offering 10 years, and that includes the initial 2-year interest only period.
Okay. And just because we have so many businesses here locally that service the steel industry, or smaller businesses that that may have related products. Is there a definition for what would constitute a steel-based industry, just for your sake?
For us, it's steel manufacturers, but it would be direct or indirect. I think if you're in the industry, we don't want to set like a set term to it, but I think as long as you can indicate the effect and the impact that you're having in that industry, then we would acknowledge that and look to go through the process.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Nevin, I did have a question for you. You touched on the different streams under the program as repayable and non-repayable streams. If a company goes the route of the $1 million plus and puts themselves into the repayable stream, what is the timeline looking like for those repayment process?
Yeah, great question. So if the project is over $1 million that they need in support, then it would be repayable. And how that works through FedNor is the company would have a year after the project ends before they would have to start making payments. And depending on the amount, it could go anywhere from 5 to 10 years repayment. So we would work that out together as we're developing the project to sort of accommodate the company's budget, et cetera, going forward. But yeah, it's negotiable. So it could go up to 10 years repayment to give them additional time to pay that back. And again, it is 0% interest, so it is quite attractive for cash flow purposes to not be incurring any interest.
Yeah, for sure. Now, like a lot of FedNor funding, from the sounds of it, you mentioned this is project-based. Has there been any definition of when projects would need to be completed by at this point?
Yeah, so the project runs from March 21st, 2025 until March 31st, 2028. So what that means is the project must be completed by March 31st, 2028, all costs incurred and paid in order to be eligible. So realistically, we'd probably be looking at a year or two length in the project, depending on what it is. Maybe it's just purchasing a piece of equipment, so that could be a quick project, but typically, we have to stay within the bounds of the program timeline to make sure everything is wrapped up.
And just in terms of if a business does apply for the funding, what do you see as the projected turnaround time before an approval can be made?
Yeah, it's hard to say, and we never love to throw that out. But I'll just say that FedNor is pretty efficient. So all of our decision making is internal. We don't go to external due diligence or a board of directors, for example. So all of our due diligence is done by the officer and internally, and then we push that up for approvals. So realistically, I believe our standard is 80 days from when you have all the information in. So when we send you a notification saying your application is complete, technically you have 80 business days after that. But I would say we can be pretty efficient, and depending on the project, a couple months at the most, I would say, to get it approved, depending on our workload over here, of course, but I'd say that's realistic.
Okay, fantastic.
So more like 60 days or less.
That's fantastic. So I'm just taking a quick peek here through the chat. Just for everybody that's taking part today, if you don't have your chat window open, I strongly recommend taking a peek at it either before or after the meeting. Both Nadia and Nevin have dropped some excellent information in here, along with the links for the specific programs that they've been talking about today. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. So at this point, I will just say thank you to both Nevin, Nadia, as well as Tara for going through these funding opportunities for us today, and strongly encourage those of you that are on the call today, please let those other small businesses, your clients, your customers know about these programs. Right now, the inference that we're getting is that right now there is not really a lot of talks that are going on right now between the two governments. So it's hard to say how long these tariffs are going to be in place and how long these impacts are going to be playing out. No doubt, though, I think there's already been some damage that has been done, and there's going to be ripple effects through the economy for quite some time. So please, learn about the opportunities that are out there for your businesses, and please be sure to share it. Do we have any final words from our presenters today?
I'll just mention again that, some of those costs can go back to March 21st. So let's see, for example, your business was sort of immediately impacted and you took some actions, whether it was buying equipment or other maneuvers, before contemplating sort of a bigger project or seeing some of the funding opportunities. We may be able to look at that and include some of those costs in your proposed project. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'd love to discuss what you're thinking and look at some possibilities.
And
Hey.
I'll just say on my end, one of the biggest things I'm always telling clients, and sometimes if you're on my LinkedIn, like hashtag know your options. So whether we decide to proceed or if it's a fit or not, knowing what's out there and having that discussion and seeing what makes sense for where you're at. It might not be today, it could be a little bit down the road, but just knowing your options of the projects and products and programs that are out there.
Excellent advice. Thank you. Thank you both, Nevin and Nadia and Tara. And again, on behalf of the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank everybody who jumped in here today. We will do our best to continue to bring you information and share out resources as things come forward. And I would encourage both of our presenters today too to make sure please keep the Chamber of Commerce in the loop. I think this was informative for everybody that took part today. And as things continue to come down the pipeline, we are happy to continue to share this out for our local businesses. So thank you very much, everybody, and stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.